Welcome to the Code Deploy Go Live podcast, episode 19. I'm Julie Turner and I'm here with Andrew Connell. If you want to watch this episode as a video, head over to our YouTube channel. You'll find the link in the show notes. In this episode, AC and I are going to discuss a significant change to the SharePoint framework in the upcoming version 1.22 release. That release features the most significant change to the build toolchain for all SharePoint framework projects. Sounds scary, right? Nope. Keep listening and you'll be ready when the new release comes out. Recorded live November 13th, 2025. Hey there, AC.
How's it going, Julie?
Oh, it's going okay. It's going okay. You want to hear about my day?
Uh-oh. Yes, I think. Do I?
I am just, once again, so incredibly frustrated. Oops. That almost was a word.
That's okay.
Frustrated with the Microsoft Graph. And it's not necessarily even the Microsoft Graph team. It's just, so I have a client. I'm working on some integration stuff with them. I want to be able to create an Entra ID mail contact for them for reasons. Doesn't really matter. Okay, great. Can I create a mail contact with the Microsoft Graph? Turns out, yes, not documented, because it all the documentation says it's like it's like personal contact. So like me contact or, user contact. But turns out there's a /contacts right off the root that gets you the mail contacts. Okay, great. I figured that out. Reverse engineering. Why isn't it in the docs? Let's not talk about that part. Moving on. Okay, so I can create the mail contact. Oh, guess what? In the admin UX for Exchange, there's a way that you can set the mail contact and not show up in the gal. Ask me if you can do that with the Microsoft Graph. Can you?
Can you do that with the Microsoft Graph?
No, you can't, Andrew. You can't. And you know how you have to do it?
No, I don't.
With the Exchange PowerShell module. So now I have to dirty my hands by creating an Azure function to run, of all friggin' things, PowerShell, simply to go through and to either on a queue trigger or maybe a timer trigger, I haven't decided yet, probably a queue trigger, I will have to go through and go, oh, a contact was made, let's go and run this set mail contact PowerShell module to hide it from the gal. I will give them that at least the Exchange PowerShell module allows me to use managed identity to auth, so I'm a little bit happy about that. But the fact that I have to do this it dirties my soul, sir. It dirties my soul.
I'm sorry.
And I feel like I have to go shower or something. I'm not Todd Clint, and I don't want to write PowerShell for production. I don't.
I thought you were going to say I'm not Todd Clint. I do shower. I was like, whoa.
No. Todd Clint is a very clean person. I've been in his vicinity. He does not smell. He definitely showers. But
we should stop that.
He
thread
does
right
like
now.
PowerShell.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I do not like PowerShell.
Friggin' A. No, for production.
No. Yeah. I feel you. I feel you. And what's so funny is I every once in a while, like I'm working on something or I'm whatever in the docs or something, and they're like going, here, you run this PowerShell to get this working. I'm like, what about those of us that are on a Mac? Because like 90% of the PowerShell's cross-platform, like 90% of the stuff that people write isn't. So we're using this to go through and set this whole thing up. Like, yeah, we use PowerShell. I'm like, and those of us on a Mac, they go, well, you can just run it in PowerShell on the Mac. I'm like, it doesn't work. PowerShell on the Mac doesn't work. It doesn't most of it, the stuff that's done is not cross-platform. So I don't know.
This is frustrating at a level. I mean, and this is not the first thing even this week that I've had to deal with that the graph didn't document and or doesn't support. Like I've been reverse engineering and like just jumping through hoops to implement stuff for people this week that makes me want to commit Harry. Anyway, that's what's going on in my life. What's going on with you, Andrew? Something zen, something positive, something not going to make me want to kill myself?
Yeah. Okay. Got a couple. Well, yeah, I got a couple. So one, I don't think we talked about this last time, but I'd like to just kind of, put a little star on our podcast that we also had influence yet again. That the all of oh my God, The we had ranted a bunch about like Teams development stuff, and I don't remember if this happened before our last time we recorded or after. I just went and looked and couldn't see it, but I'd complained about the naming of the Teams AI SDK v2, right?
That was last episode.
Did we talk about last episode?
I think we talked. Well, we talked about it last episode, and we talked about it the episode before. We talked about it both.
Yeah. So we talked about it 2 episodes ago and 3 episodes ago. Last one was Azure Functions, but then like
but in the intro you talked about it. So last episode and the episode before, we talked about the fact that the name was horrifying.
Yep. So they got rid of the old name and we won, and it's called the Teams SDK, which is very nice. Still got a lot of issues with the docs, but I was very happy to see that. The other thing that kind of jumped out at me that I saw that actually is about 2 weeks old now that I somehow missed this, but did you see this thing that like Microsoft is dropping IDCRL auth from modern SharePoint? Do you know what that is?
No.
I didn't either. Get this. Haha. Okay, pretty sure I got this. IDCL is referred to as the legacy authentication protocol. It stands for Identity Client Runtime Library. And it will, in other words, CSOM.
Okay. Oh, CSOM. Well, that I know it is. Oh.
Well, so I checked in on this and I was like going, is this CSOM thing? And apparently you can still do CSOM if you do OAuth based auth. But basically, the only way you're going to be able to call SharePoint Online is to rely on OpenID Connect and OAuth protocol. So they're getting rid of it as part of the whole like Secure Future Initiative thing that they're getting rid of. So it's just a quick hit. So starting January 31st of 2026, legacy client auth will be blocked by default, although you can temporarily use, PowerShell to unblock it by setting this property. You can do that anytime before January 30th, and you'll be able to basically punt it until April the 30th, 2026. But starting on May, it's just going to be blocked from, you're screwed after starting May 1st.
2 things. 1, stop triggering me about PowerShell. But 2, why is everything happening April? April of 26. I know, right?
They're shutting it all down.
Literally everything is happening of April 26th. It actually makes sense. It feels like everything that's happening April 26th is all about security. Like we have the publishing sites forever gone on April 26th. We have all the ACL stuff gone. Then like
ACS.
final. ACL.
Yeah. Azure Access Control Service.
Yes, ACL.
Yeah, Azure Access Control Service.
ACL is that thing in your leg that you could hurt yourself.
Or it's an access control list, an ACL.
Oh, that too. All right, yeah, an ACL. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Well, an ACL can also really hurt you in the leg. So we also
valid.
2013 workflows are going to die.
Like so
are
many.
Die.
Yeah, all the things. All the things are going to die. Kittens will die actually this time instead of.
Someone said like going, oh my God, but usually it's like bad things happen in 3. So this is a lot more. I'm like, no, SharePoint 2013 workflows dying is not bad. Neither is add-ins. That's not bad. That's not bad.
No, it's not bad. I don't think it's bad either. I think it's good. And it's like more of this needs to happen. It just needs to be communicated with a nice runway.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
So I will say that, so that's one thing I did notice, but like what's been new in my life, I've been really digging in and working on some stuff for the SharePoint framework, the next tool chain, the next release with the big tool chain that we'll talk about today. But furthermore, I've also I've spent a lot more time we talked a lot about all the stuff related to like the team's development story and how I've just been, it's like PowerShell is for you. This has been a triggering experience. And I wrote a handful of articles. I guess we can put up some in the show notes, but about my thoughts on it, to where I think that Microsoft is sabotaging the team's developer experience, or at least sabotaging the developers who want to do Teams app dev. They're sabotaging the motivation to do it when they keep doing these crazy changes. And apparently it's having a little bit of an impact. I don't know what the results will be, but I know I've had a couple conversations with people at Microsoft, and I'll tell you, there's been some stuff that's been refreshing because I've had 2 calls this week. They really did. I don't think they really liked the last title of the article, which was something around the lines of the Agents Toolkit is actually a great piece of tech, but Microsoft has zero empathy for developers when it comes to this stuff.
I agreed. I read that one, by the way, and yes, I agreed with everything you said.
I appreciate that. You should like and subscribe.
Dude, I am already subscribed. How do you think I got it?
But it's funny because the conversations I had with a couple people from Microsoft after I put those out, like one of them was, let's talk for feedback for like 30 minutes, and then we want to turn the recording off. And we want to go off the record. And then I had another one that was off the record. And look, I'm not going to say any of the stuff that was discussed in those because they're off the record. But I'll just say this, and this is not my takeaway from those, but if you feel the same way, this is one of those things that, like, sitting around at home and doing nothing doesn't help. And watching other people like charge up a hill about something that you feel passionate about, and you don't say anything or even do like a +1 or something like that, it actually doesn't. You're missing an opportunity. I know that when you, like, I've gone out and stuck my neck out on a couple things like this, and you and I both have on a couple different things, like field customizers, whatever. When people jump in and they offer, even if it's just a comment of totally agree, or a like, or a love, or a repost, if you post something about it, like when it's talked about on LinkedIn, if you go to like the person where the person wrote the article and you add a comment or you add a reaction to it, that stuff is all telemetry that Microsoft and other people will see that shows that this isn't some rando that's just saying this, that's being off, that we can just dismiss this, that that he's saying it, but a lot of other people feel the same way. So it's noticeable. And I would just ask that if you feel the same way, then do it. If you don't, then don't do it. But if you feel the same way, then even if it's just, you don't have to use the same words I use. And if you have a different opinion, then voice a different opinion. But the fact that that Microsoft is watching this stuff, and it does make a freaking difference.
Yeah, and everything, the whole Microsoft model is based on telemetry. Everything that happens in Microsoft, as far as like what features get implemented, what features stay, what features get deprecated, all of those things all work off telemetry. And so does our rants. So yeah, it's great that you and I can have this platform to share our feelings and rant about things. But if the community does not engage with those places where we're surfacing it, and or make their own engagements and have engagement around it, so it doesn't have to come from us, but if you're sitting out there going, well, I'm not Julie or Andrew, so my voice doesn't matter, you need to stop thinking that immediately, because your voice absolutely matters. And the reason that you've seen some change based on things that we've sort of ranted about and talked about is because people engaged with those rants and +1'd it or thumbs upped it or reposted it or whatever. And that was enough telemetry for Microsoft to go, oh, this is an actual issue. People really care about this. We need to address it. So yeah. I am completely mirroring your comments on this.
I would say, like, that's the way you feel about it, you need to squash that bug and speak up.
Yeah.
Right. Or something like that.
Do not feel intimidated about it. Your voice matters. 100%
exactly.
Your voice matters.
100%. Yeah. Okay. That's it. We got a lot of stuff we want to talk about. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. So let's move on to the guts of the matter, so to speak, and dive deep into the guts of SharePoint framework.
Okay. Sounds good. So we talked about this. We actually scrambled a little bit to come up with an idea for our show today. And yeah. I mean, we wanted to talk about this, but
we didn't scramble. We just didn't know if we didn't know if we wanted to talk about this at this juncture, if we were ready to talk about it, or if we should wait a little longer or not wait a little longer. And I think we decided that now is the right time based on how things will sort of flow.
And the fact that you're hearing this, clearly that's what we decided. So,
obs.
So what I thought we could do with this is the skinny of this is that the next version of the SharePoint framework, which is version 1.22, when it ships, It is going to have no new features in it. The only thing that it does, I guess there's two things it does. I would consider all of this like infrastructure stuff. So let me just start out right away. If you got anything inside the source folder of your project, this isn't touching anything of that, right? Well, first off, you don't have anything in the source folder of your project, then what the hell are you building? But it's not, this doesn't impact your web part or your extension, or you're not getting any new toys, or it's like going, is React updated? No, nothing like that. This does two things. One is that, and this is like a side effect, is that you will see them do a big push on trying to squash and get rid of a lot of those deprecated and vulnerabilities and stuff that you see when you do an NPM install. So they refer to them as the NPM audit findings. They're working really hard to get that down to zero. I didn't think they were going to do it. I'm actually surprised they've been as successful as they have been. But I mean, let's just.
It's not going to stay that way.
No, exactly. Let's call a spade. Like all it takes is for one of those things to find a vulnerability, and then it needs to get updated, and then we got to wait for a new version of SharePoint framework to get there. So we'll get to 0 day.
Just to level set everybody, talk to the fact, if you want to say it, I'll say it, whatever. But what that really means, if there's vulnerabilities in the build pipeline, it has no impact on the solution that you're deploying.
Yeah. Agreed.
So if you don't understand that, you've written many articles on the subject, and it's important to understand that.
So that's one that's happening, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. The big thing is that the build toolchain itself is getting a complete like overhaul. So think like we're ripping the foundation out and we're putting a brand new foundation in. And it's going to have, I believe it's going to have a very significant impact on many, many projects. And especially if you do anything if you do anything inside of gulpfile.js, so Webpack configuration stuff or custom gulp stuff, if you do any of that, it's going to impact you. And you're going to have to you're going to have to migrate some stuff. So today, what I thought we would do is let's first take like just a few minutes, level set, and understand what we're talking about, what we have today, and how it works. And there's specific things I want to call out and how it works, because I then can explain what is 1.22, what the way is, how does it work, and talk about the different scenarios of how you would address this. Now, in doing this, I fully acknowledge that you're going to need to see some code for this. So we are intentionally not going to go like super deep. I want this to be conceptual of how does it work and how would you go about doing this. I'm going to go against my best judgment right now and say that when this episode goes live, there should be docs in the SharePoint dev docs that actually show you code and show you some of these scenarios of this stuff. At least that is what my deadline is, and that is what my intention is.
Going to put that stake in the sand? I don't know if I would do that, but okay.
Well, Microsoft kind of did to me anyway, so I kind of have to. I have a choice.
But you can move again. All right.
Anyway, so let's do this first. So let's talk about what the build toolchain looks like today. So if you're in 1.21 or anything older than that, how does it affect you? Now, these are my terms, and we'll see where these come. I've asked Microsoft, and we don't really have a name for it, and I actually had some acronyms for it that I probably shouldn't share.
Yeah, let's not do that. I've heard them.
Yeah. Well, I'll share one of them. I'll share one of them, and I don't mean. Well, no, I'm not going to do that. Let's not do that. That's a bad idea. That's not cool. So I'm referring to the current tool chain that if you have a SharePoint framework project that is 1.21 or earlier, I'm calling that the Gulp tool chain. All right. And the reason why is because Gulp's going away. That's, punchline. Ta-da, podcast over. Not really. Stay tuned. Make sure you like and subscribe. Stay to the end.
Ask your server for.
Yeah, right. So the one that we're going to get is I'm just calling the Heft toolchain because Heft is going to replace Gulp. Okay, before we get there, let's explain how this works. So in the Gulp-based toolchain, the way it works today is that we use a tool called Gulp. Gulp is simply a task runner, and that we have multiple tasks that are available to us. If you're a SharePoint Framework developer, you've done this. You go to the command line, you say Gulp build, or Gulp bundle, or Gulp package solution, or Gulp serve. What does this do? The build process, it compiles your TypeScript to JavaScript. It compiles your Sass to CSS. It does like linting stuff. What does bundle do? Bundle uses Webpack to generate a static bundle based on all of the dependencies your project has. And it also is used to do some other stuff like manifest creation that the SharePoint Framework runtime uses to figure out what needs to be loaded before your web part's loaded. Package solution, it runs what package solution does, it's going to generate the SharePoint package. It's going to the SPPKG. The serve command, what is that? The serve task, what does that do? That starts our local web server. Some of these things, these tasks, are composite tasks, or they have other tasks they depend on. So if I run gulp serve, it actually runs gulp build, gulp bundle, and then it runs gulp serve under the covers. Okay. So that's one. Second piece of this that's important to understand is I mentioned Webpack. What is Webpack's responsibility? Webpack's responsibility, quoting straight from their website, it's a static module bundler that for JavaScript that processes modules and dependencies to generate optimized static assets. That's it. That's all Webpack does. Now, Webpack has a model that they use called is a plugin model, where you have the ability to do other stuff while it's working, or to control things that are being done, or even after it's done stuff. You have an ability to go through and to do some stuff while Webpack is generating the bundle or after it through the use of plugins. And some of these plugins, that's what Microsoft has done, right? They've created a plugin for Webpack that is responsible for building the manifest for a component, all right? And there are other plugins that they use out of the box. And I'll talk like some of the things that we could do, like when you think about like customization or extensibility stuff that you could do. Well, I like to look at it as like two different categories of things that we can customize. You can customize Webpack itself, the configuration, right? So what's happening with this? Well, when the toolchain runs, the SharePoint Framework toolchain is generating a Webpack configuration. It's a big JSON object. When they create that configuration, you then pass that to Webpack, and that tells Webpack what to do. What they do is they give us the ability to hook in and get the configuration that they've generated. We can then mutate that configuration and give it back, and then that's what they use when they go run Webpack.
Right. So we get an event step sort of right in the middle. So this process starts, they create the JSON file that is for Webpack. We can augment it if we want, and then it keeps going into Webpack.
Right. So, and the way you've done that, if you've ever gone through and created if you go into the gulp file, and I think the method we used to use was we go to at the end of the gulp file we say build.configure.webpack.merge config. You pass in an object, and that object has, I think it's, oh my God, I just forgot.
You would ask me this. I copy paste it constantly, so I don't even remember.
I just forgot what the name of it was. I have it in my notes too, but I don't even look at my notes. Aren't coming up fast enough for me. It's like merge config, and then you say like add the configuration, and it gives us the config object, and then we can go through and mutate the heck out of it and then give it back. Okay. So
yes.
what kinds of things do we do to it? Well, like I said, it's plugin based. So there's some out of the box plugins with Webpack. There's third party plugins. We can make changes to the plugins. We can add our own plugins. Like a lot of people like to add the Webpack Bundle Analyzer. I'm a big fan. You're a big fan of the define plugin, where you can have a constant in your code, and the define plugin lets you do a string replacement on the bundle that's generated after it's generated, so that I can put like IDs or connection strings or keys inside of my generated code, but it's not going to live in my source control. Right.
100%.
Keep
going. No, I was just going to say, and because you've done that, if you are using CI/CD for your build pipeline, you can define in your CI/CD solution the variables you want to use for different builds. So it gets replaced either locally, you have your thing for your debug situation, but then in your deployments, you can have different configuration files that have the values for those things to be built in when you're doing your pipeline.
Right.
And that's the real power of them.
Exactly. Yeah. So the other thing, I know the define plugin is like for me, the define plugin is like one of the most underrated things that people aren't aware of.
Oh, 1,000%. I think it was you who showed me how to do it, and I was like, wait, whoa, okay, yeah. This is big. Yeah.
What's funny about it to me too is that people are like going, oh, have you ever used a define plugin? I love adding it to the SharePoint Framework build toolchain. I'm like, you shouldn't be adding it. I'm like, what do you mean? I go, it's already there. You're overriding their own settings. You shouldn't be doing that. And they're like, what do you mean it's already there? I'm like, how do you, never mind. Right. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. Anyway, you should take my class and explain that. But anyway, the other thing that we do is we can also create our own custom like steps as part of the build using Gulp. So we can create a Gulp task that just runs some arbitrary code. We can have that task we create get hooked onto the pre or the post of some of the other life cycle events like build or bundle, right? So we can say after the bundling phase, I want to do this, right? Okay. That's the state of the union today. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, you've nailed the two things that I 99.999% of the time use. So
okay.
You've got it.
So what is Microsoft doing? What is this new thing that they're doing here? And we can, maybe later we'll talk about the opinion side of it, but I'm just going to be like, explain what's going on. So what they're doing in 1.22 is they are throwing away Gulp and they're replacing it with Heft. Now there's a little bit of a, why are they doing this? And there's a little bit of history to it. The very brief version of the history, it's actually a big reason why you have seen a lot of stuff not change for many years, is that many years ago, they forked from another like build toolchain that Microsoft was using. They forked off of it to do some of their own stuff. And when they did that, they now were owning this build toolchain that they had to maintain that only the SharePoint framework was using. And that meant that all the dependencies, they were the ones that had to be responsible for going through and updating these dependencies and testing them as part of the build toolchain, which is one of the reasons these NPM audits were growing and growing and growing, and we're never getting any better. And internally, a while ago, Microsoft was like, this was a bad idea. And they've switched back internally to saying, we're going to go back to using a different model of doing this whole thing. And they never did it for what we were using, but it wasn't a good story. So the big motivation for this is to get things kind of reunified back together so that we're using the same tool chain that they're using. But it's also to kind of make things a little bit, they will tell you is to make things a little bit better. I'm just going to say it makes things different, but it just makes things, they'll say it makes things better. Okay. So what is the fundamental change with this? The fundamental thing when you look at it is that, like I said, Gulp is going away and it is being replaced with Heft. So Heft, it serves the exact same role as Gulp did. It's a task runner, period, full stop. Now it works in a very different way from how Gulp works. And we still have the whole like Webpack model that we're using to do the bundling process, but there's a lot of additional like layers and architecture and stuff that's kind of built in under the covers that Gulp does not have, that does give us some more flexibility in what we do with our tool chain, but it also is just kind of adopting more, getting back in line with what a bunch of the another Microsoft project called RushStack and Heft and how they do stuff for a lot of their projects and products. And so now the SharePoint framework team is no longer maintaining this tool chain, somebody else is, and they can just focus on the SharePoint framework. So that's a good thing.
That is a good thing.
No, I will tell you, this is going to be my opinion here, but there will be a way that you can in 1.22, there is a way that when you create a project, you can say, I don't want to use Heft, I still want to use Gulp. If you're doing that, that's not a good idea. I think it's a bad idea to do that because the only reason you're going to upgrade to 1.22 is to get the new tool chain. There's no features in it. There's 0 features in it. So if you're going to say, I want to go get the new tool chain, but I'm going to keep using Gulp and I'm not going to migrate all my stuff yet, eventually Gulp will completely disappear from the tool chain. I think it's supposed to happen in the first half of either the next or the next release of the SharePoint framework. So it'll happen probably in the first half of 2026. So if you're going to bump up to 1.22, you're saying I want to buy into the new tool chain, or sorry, you're not saying you want to buy into the tool chain. You're like, let's just go ahead and get it over with.
Yeah, I would say this is very similar to, and it's ironic because you and I were sort of on the same page back at the beginning of the SharePoint framework when we were like, well, you put in React, but we want to use Angular. And so we're going to just use Angular. And then we both, I think, individually came to the realization, why would I load a separate framework into SharePoint framework when React is already on the page? That's ridiculous. Let's get on board. And so I think, this is a similar thing. If you're not going to get on board with Heft, then just don't upgrade. And if you're not going to upgrade, you're going to eventually get to a point where they are going to start releasing new features and new functionality, and you're going to be left behind. So be mad, be angry, hit some punching bags, don't hit a wall, Derek. And, then, and then just bite the bullet and accept your fate and move on,
Yeah, agreed. Okay. So that's the gist of what's happening. Now, I will tell you that so far, every single extensibility point that you've done. So what does that mean for you? Let's stop for a sec. What does that mean for you? If I go and create a brand new SharePoint framework project using 1.22, what am I going to notice that's different? Well, Gulp is gone. All right. But you still have the same concept. Like what we have Gulp tasks, they're not called tasks, they're called phases. But that's not really important right now. In the new style with Heft, they're called phases, and you still have almost the exact same names of things you do that you did before. Yep. So you have a Heft build, you have a Heft package solution. There's some changes, but they're changes that make sense. So for example, there's no longer where we had Gulp serve. There's no longer Gulp serve. There's a Heft start. It's just a rename. There's nothing different there.
Okay. Except for my muscle memory is going to die.
Yeah.
Like how long have I been typing?
Yeah.
Gulp.
I'm just glad because I got one student that keeps saying I'm Gulp serving. I'm gulping or I'm Gulp serving, and I'm like, stop it. I finally was like, look, that's it. You do this again in my community, your post is going to get flagged for moderation, because I've got people asking me like, how do I do serving? And I'm like, no, you're not going to make up terms and do this. You got that term. That's fine. Keep that to yourself. Right. That's something you don't share outside your house. Anyway. So, and if you're listening to that, Mike, please don't do it again. So it's no longer called Gulp serve or Heft serve. It's called Heft start. Makes sense, right? Another one of the changes you're going to see is that the argument -- ship, it's a P on the end, guys. It's a P. -- ship has gone. It's replaced with -- production. I mean, we already had like that
one I hate.
Well, you could also use -P, which that -P has worked forever. Fine. So
yeah.
What's interesting, but actually makes a lot of sense. There is no bundle. There's no Heft bundle. Why? Because you're never going to build and not bundle. So it was irrelevant. So now when you do a Heft build, think of bundles. It's doing the build and then bundle. So you're doing more than that. Okay, so
brilliant.
That's the gist of it. And you'll see the differences if you look in the package.json file. You'll see like they've got a bunch of scripts to kind of make things a little bit easier to see what things used to look like. But the docs will have a table in there because I'm looking at the template of my docs that I'm doing, and that table's it's right there.
I like that the fact that there are scripts in the package.json though. That's like, it's nice and clean to see that. So it's great.
Okay, so before we talk about some of like the extensibility stuff with it, I think you have to kind of understand. I got to start peeling back the onion, and I'm not going to go deep with this. I'm not going to try and get too technical with this, but I just want you to understand where we're going with this. I'm going to start from the bottom, and we're going to kind of work our way up, and then I'm going to explain how does a new project work. All right. So, and Julie, I know you're playing the role of the person who has never done this, and you're going to ask me questions going like, I don't know what you're talking about. Help out here. So please feel free to interrupt. All right.
Yep.
So at the bottom level, the very base, we've got this concept called a task when it comes to Heft. All a task does, it reads input files and it generates output files, and it can also have dependencies that it relies on, other tasks. Think TypeScript, think ESLint, think Webpack. I'm going to have a task for running the TypeScript compiler because it's taking files in and it's putting files out. ESLint, taking files in, not generating anything out, but it's taking files in. Webpack, taking files in, Webpack pushing stuff out, right? What does Webpack need? Webpack has a dependency. What is that dependency? TypeScript, right? It needs a TypeScript task to run. So that's one thing, task at the very base. Then we have a thing called a phase. Phase is what we used to call tasks in Gulp. So I have a build phase. What does the build phase do? It runs the task ESLint. It runs the task TypeScript. It runs the task compile Sass. I have a task called start. Sorry, I have a phase called start. It has a dependency on build and what we used to know as bundle, so what the Webpack task, but it also is going to have another task that it runs for spinning up a local web server. All right. Now, so we have tasks. Phases are names of a task or a bunch of tasks put together.
Okay.
And what some of those tasks can have dependencies of other tasks.
Okay. That's probably like how in Gulp you used to be able to add a plugin that would run things in parallel or serial. Same idea.
Same. Yeah. Okay. So now what we do is we create a thing called a profile. So a profile is a collection of all the phases. So for the SharePoint framework, we have a single profile that is the SharePoint framework profile. And that defines the build, the package solution phase, the start phase, the test phase, the untrust dev cert, trust dev cert phases, and the other ones I'm not thinking off the top of my head that I don't have my table in front of me anymore.
I think that was a fairly complete list. We're good.
There's a clean. There's a deploy Azure
clean.
storage. Yeah,
Ooh, I never used that one, but yeah.
I didn't either. So you have all that stuff. Okay, cool. So now that profile is defined. Where's that profile defined? That profile is defined in something called a rig. So what is a rig? A rig is essentially a collection of profiles, which, as we've already learned, is a collection of phases, which is a collection of tasks and in the configuration of those tasks. Okay.
Okay, I'm confused.
Okay, and which part?
Well, what's the equivalent in what we have now of profiles and rigs? Like, I don't understand why. Are they just things that they pull things together, but they really don't have any equivalency? It's just because you might want those types of things in a Heft build, whereas this have an equivalency.
So there's no equivalence. So think that that a rig and a profile, that is like a thing that is now between what we do in, like, let's just call it SharePoint in the Gulp toolchain. In the SharePoint Gulp toolchain, there's no concept of a rig or a profile because every project you create is always going to have the same tasks available to it.
Yeah. Okay, that makes more sense to me. Yep.
So what this does is this allows me to have a configuration of those tasks.
Okay.
But I can have another configuration if I wanted.
In the same project.
In the same project. Now,
do you have any scenarios in where you might want that?
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, good.
No,
yeah,
sorry.
Okay.
I don't know. But think about it like this, though. So this is where things get there are things that get a little bit interesting with this. So beyond the rig thing, there is a concept called a rig package. So what is that? All right. When I have a new SharePoint framework project, now this is where I can kind of go, I can start kind of, I took the onion, we started at the base of it, and we kind of built this onion up. So now let's look at this SharePoint framework onion and let's kind of go right back down. Let's go back down to it. So how does it work? When you create a brand new project with the SharePoint framework 1.22 or higher, when you look at that project, when you look in the config folder, you're going to find a new file called rig.json. and it looks pretty sparse. Well, it is pretty sparse. It's going to have a line at the top for schema. And then it's going to say, what is the rig that we're using? And what it does is it points to what is an NPM package.
Okay.
That is a rig package because that NPM package contains rigs, right? One or more. That rig package now is externalized from the rest of our project. It will be installed you'll see it listed in the dev dependencies on our project.
Okay.
But inside that package, there is, as I said, a rig contains profiles. There is a default profile for the SharePoint framework that defines all of the phases. So you look at it and you're going like, wait a minute. So why is it like something a SharePoint framework project is going to point to a rig package that contains a single rig, that contains a single profile for everything? You're going, I know there's a little bit of one-to-one kind of things there, but it may not be that way. Like you may go look at another rig package that actually has multiple rigs in it or multiple profiles for different scenarios.
Yeah, I could see that being a thing in general. What I was not sort of grokking is where the SharePoint, a scenario where you would need or want that in the SharePoint framework. So that's why I was a little lost at the beginning, but I could see in a generic sense why you might want to do that, right? Like dev build versus let's say you had TypeScript configuration that had source maps in it and or not source maps in it or something like that. And so I could absolutely see then defining multiple, profiles that would be a dev profile and a UAT profile and a production profile and a whatever. I could totally see that. I just don't think I see that for the SharePoint framework. So.
Okay. So what if you were, you talked about source maps. All right. What if you did all of your projects and you use something like Azure Application Insights for your telemetry? You used, you needed to have your source maps built in a certain way because those source maps are going to get deployed to, you may want to go deploy those source maps to a Azure storage blob that is associated with your App Insights so that when there's an exception, you can get the automatic decompilation of the call stack, right?
Sure. You've showed me that. I haven't done that, but you showed, yeah.
Right. So that's something you may want to do. But maybe you have another instance where you're not using App Insights and you're using Datadog for your telemetry and you're storing it somewhere else. So you have a different kind of a configuration, but I don't want to have separate deployment steps, tasks that I have to create, or separate this, separate that. It's that rig is this, it has a build on it as well, but that build either has a different configuration or has different settings on it. And so maybe I, as like Voitanos, or you as Sympraxis, want to offer the Sympraxis SPFx rigs, and here are your different options. And if I want to use that option that you've defined, then I tell you, when you get your project, you install my NPM package to get my rig, and then go to that one file, the rig.json, and you point to my package and you point to the profile that you want to use. And what my rig can be, it can depend on the SharePoint framework rig.
Sure.
But it can
customize. It can. Yeah. So no, that's actually really cool.
Right. So now when I want to go through and I want to have my own build toolchain, I don't have to build out my entire build toolchain. I can take a dependency on theirs and I can basically, JavaScript term, I can monkey patch the way that their toolchain works to add my stuff. But when a new version of framework comes out, or 6 months from now, when there's they did something else that makes it even faster, I get to take advantage of all that stuff because I take a dependency on it. So I'm just making one change to what they're doing and I have to redo the entire thing.
Right. No, 100%. And that actually makes some sense. And I can absolutely see where that could be really interesting as far as more advanced solutions. Yep. Cool.
The next thing that we have to talk, so that's how it works. Now the next thing we have to understand then is, what about all these changes I've made? What about all these customizations I've made to my tool chain? How do I deal with this?
Right. Yeah.
So as I said earlier, you want to think about this in one of two ways, just like we do today. Is this something I do in Webpack, or is this something I do as like a step, right? Like I might do it as a script, or as a custom gulp task. How do I do this? So the way a lot of this works is that under the covers, we can create our own plugin for Heft.
Okay. All
and
right.
what a Heft plugin is going to do is that's going to allow me to create a custom task.
Okay.
Or a custom configuration of a task.
Sure.
All right. So
Yep.
let's do an easy one first. All right. So one of the things a lot of people want to do, I want to customize Webpack because as we talked about earlier, I want to do the define plugin, or I want to add the Webpack bundle analyzer. How do I do this?
Yeah. I need to know how to do that. Go ahead.
Right. So, so this is actually,
wait, I'll start taking notes. Hold, please.
yeah. So this is actually pretty easy because something they did. Now they looked at it, and when I first saw this stuff, and I'm like, there's a lot of people that are doing this. Like, yeah, you really think? And I'm like, yeah, I really think. And I remember you and I having a conversation. I'm like, Julie, am I crazy here? Because I think a lot of people are doing this.
No, and if you're not doing it, you should be. So ask yourself why.
Right. So, and if you don't know how, you come to me, and I have a class that shows you how to do it.
Right.
So,
and if you don't want to do it at all, you come to me and I do it for you.
Exactly. There you go. So the way we want to do this to modify Webpack, when I showed them this, they're like, so how are you going to go through and do this with Webpack? So what they did is they created a custom task, a plugin that contains a task that they have added to the default SharePoint framework rig. So this didn't exist in beta 1 of 1.22, but it exists in the betas now. And I'm going to miss the name. I'm going to mess the name up for this if I can find it really quick, because of course I'm not as prepared as I should be. It's called, so the plugin is called, and it's in a plugin package called the SPFx Heft plugins, and the plugin is called Webpack Patch plugin.
Ooh.
Now the way this works is that this has been added to the bundling phase, or the bundling part of the build phase.
Okay.
That it's a task that runs after the Webpack configuration is created. There's actually like 4 or 5 tasks where it's created. But what it does is this patch, what it does is it looks for the presence of a specific file in your project.
Okay.
That file that it's looking for is the file that I'm looking for right now. Yeah, I think I just, oh my God, hold on. No, it's in this one sample here that I have. It is in the file called, I want to make sure I get this right. It is in the config folder, and it is called webpack-patch.json.
Okay.
That JSON file contains a single property called patch files that is an array, and you point to JavaScript files that contain the changes you want to make. So for me, I have a file called patch webpack, right? Or patch or at webpack bundle analyzer. All right.
Sure. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yep.
So to get that to work, I then create a new file, webpack bundle analyzer.js, or you can use ESM. You can use new JavaScript, or you can use TypeScript. Just gonna have to compile the TypeScript before you actually do this. And what that does is that file, you export, you have a default export from that file that is a function, and that function takes in a single parameter, which is the Webpack config, and it returns the Webpack config. So essentially, what I've literally done this, when you take the code that you used to have in that, whatever we used to use, where merge config, you take out
configurations.
You create a new function that's just export module function and pass in Webpack config, and the body of that is creating the Webpack bundle analyzer with the configuration and adding it to the plugins array, and then returning back the configuration.
Yep, perfect.
So you don't even have to go through and do any registration for it. You just have to basically say, I'm adding this here, and they're always looking for any of the patches that you're making to this. Okay.
Yes, and it looks like, based on what you're saying to me, you can almost just copy and paste what you already had done right into that file and just wrap it the proper way, and you'd be pretty close to on.
You are on. That's it. I mean, you literally take the part that is the Webpacky stuff, take the SharePoint framework and toolchain stuff, just take the Webpacky stuff, copy it over to the new file, wrap it up in a function that's the default export, add the
property
patch
right now
JSON.
is called generated configuration. So as long as
the body of that,
as long as you do that, you're good. It sounds like
super easy, right? Super easy to do that.
Sweet, that's awesome.
So that's gonna be really easy. So you just do module.exports equals function argument pass in is the Webpack config, and then you return that. So boom, it's done. All right, cool. So that's one thing that they've done. That's gonna handle all of our Webpack configurations. But you look at it and go, well, but like if I do that, I got to do that to every single one of my projects like I do today in the SharePoint framework. And you're like, is there a better way if I do the same thing every time? Like,
is there a better way, Andrew?
Yeah, so there's another way. I'm not saying it's better, but there's other ways we can do this. So we could use the same approach for like the define plugin, right? Where we swap out the environment, we swap out the properties and strings in there, and everything is all good. All right, cool. Now there's other stuff we can do that I see people run, that people have certain tasks that they want to take advantage of that they do with like gulp tasks. So maybe I want to copy files to an Azure storage blob, or maybe I want to copy files or delete files, or I want to run some arbitrary script, or I want to set some environment variables. There are some out-of-the-box plugins that come with Heft for the copy files plugin, the delete files plugin, the run script plugin, and the set environment variables plugin. So let's say, for example, that you have, so I was talking to one customer about this, when after they do their entire build, they want to copy some icons and stuff into the SharePoint generated folder so that they're included in the SPPKG when that stuff is packaged up and deployed, because their projects are going to reference like company logos and stuff like that. So what they can do is they could go in and they can take the existing SharePoint framework rig and they can add to one of the existing steps. They add in a task, the copy files task that's coming from the copy files plugin, and then they have to add in a configuration for it to say what files are we copying and where are they going. And now that just gets added in. There's a way to do it by adding an existing plugin. There's a way to go through and to do it by attaching to like an event, so I can have it happen after the fact. There is, if you do something that requires like custom code. So like I talked to one person who said, we set up a bunch of environment variables on our project whenever we do our builds, that our code and actually is looking for specific environment variables when things are generated. Okay, cool, makes sense. So today they do that as a custom gulp task. I'm like, well, you have a few options. You could go, so their environment variable, their settings were coming from like app config, Azure app config. So they were using the Azure CLI to get this stuff.
Okay.
So they have a couple options. One option is they can go generate the configuration options for the set environment variable plugin. Mm-hmm. They can go generate the option file on every build as a pre-build task. And then they can modify the build task to say, add these environment variables, but they're looking at a static file, but the static file was generated on every build, right? Mm-hmm. It's one option.
Yeah.
Another option that you may want to do instead is to say, I'm going to go create, and so that's using the set environment variables thing, but you may have another option that says, you know what I really want to do is I don't want to go through and use a set environment variables that's based on a static file that I have to generate. Instead, I would actually like to create a script that is going to run and go get those environment variables on the fly and set those as part of maybe a pre-build step, right? As just one thing. For that, you would add in the run script plugin. You would add that to the pre-build step, right? Mm-hmm. You would then go in and set the configuration to point to a JavaScript file, and that JavaScript file has to export a single function with a very specific name that, of course, I'm blanking on right now, but it'll be in the docs, where you just go run your code. And so now that plugin will go run our code, similar to the Webpack patch one does. This one will go run our code to arbitrarily make changes. Or you may want to go full-blown, like I want to make this incredibly reusable, and I'm going to go create my own plugin, my own Heft plugin that has a task to say, go get stuff from Azure App Config And then when your configuration for it could say like, what is the name of the app config and what is the connection settings or the key or something like that. And it goes and fetches everything that's in there and it injects it into the environment variables for the current process. So a couple different ways to skin the cat. One of them's like, I just got to do this for this one project. So why go through and build a plugin for it? One way is I want to build a plugin because I'm going to do this in lots of different projects.
Yep.
Right.
Great.
So,
I mean, super good. So it seems a little more, well, it's just different, flexible, but
it's different, flexible. I think there's two benefits to it. I think that one is, when I say different, let's not say this isn't really a benefit. Like what you said, it's different. But I think that one benefit to it is that all of the changes we do today in the SharePoint framework, unless we do something custom ourselves, everything is like one off for every single project. And it's a copy paste. Now, some of us make, slick and say, I've created my own Gulp task that I'm going to go through and snap in. So I'll install it inside of an NPM as an NPM package, install it, and then I have to go add some code to the Gulp file to get this to work. I mean, I may do that, right? But this way it can be a little bit more like packaged up and repeatable across multiple projects, or that I could package up my stuff that I like to do for like source maps, and I could give it to you, and you can say, I'll install it, and it's all good. I'll just extend the existing rig.
Yeah, it's kind of like the ESLint control file. Like I have to replace that every single time, and I've been too lazy to do it any other way, so I just literally copy and paste it from project to project. But yeah, similar, right?
You might be able to do it with this. You might be able to have your own configuration and say, like, I just install this and extend the rig, and now you wouldn't have to go through and change it every single time. You would do it. You would go into your project, install the new one, and that's a great example. You would install this npm package that contain your rig package that would contain your ESLint configuration, and you would have your own rig configuration that extends the SharePoint framework one. And one of the things that you do when you're extending it is you're modifying the ESLint task to say, I want you to use my config, or say, don't use ESLint, and just do YOLO.
Yeah, but that doesn't help you when you're developing. Because the ESLint file, unless you're telling me differently, the ESLint rc.js file is in the project, which has the lint rules in it. And so when you're developing a Visual Studio Code, it's using those linting rules and like yelling at you. So yeah, what you just suggested would help you with a production build or a build in general, because it would use the different rules, but it doesn't help you with your development environment, unless I'm missing something.
You're not missing something, but you could always, I guess there's different things you'd have to do where you can control, like, where is that ESLint file being looked at from? Like, is it, so there's different things.
Okay, that's a good point, because it's probably, yes, you could reconfigure ESLint to point to a different folder location. Yeah, good point. But at any rate, you'd still have to make a modification, which is annoying as F, but whatever.
So that's like a high level of this stuff. I mean, I'm going through some of the scenarios and build out the docs to do some of this. So I'd be, if you got a question about this, I mean, I would love to see, like, there'll be a place where you will be able to post your questions in the SharePoint framework dev docs on how do I do this? How do I do this? And we're going to watch those. I mean, we're intentionally not going too crazy with the docs because we want to see what people ask questions about. But I mean, also, ask them here, drop it in the comment of this video. And let us know, because we can definitely take a look at that. So,
yep, absolutely.
Awesome.
Cool. Wow. We went a little longer than we intended, I think.
Yeah.
We always get verbose.
I know, right? We should do a 30-minute.
All right.
We should do a 30-minute episode. Sounds great, Julie. Let's do it. We start like, that one's another hour.
And we're at 59 minutes. All right, cool. Let's we wrapped it. Let's jump to picks so that we can wrap this show up and people don't have to listen to us forever. Andrew, my show, your pick. Go.
Yeah, I will do it. I have one pick. It is Claude Code on the web. So I'm a big fan of Claude Code. I'm not a GitHub Copilot person. Love Claude Code in Visual Studio Code, where I can, basically use like an AI assistant as I'm coding. Claude Code on the web, though, a little bit different. Claude Code on the web is I do it through a browser. I've connected it to my GitHub login. And now what it allows me to do is that when I can have a chat with it going back and forth, it clones my entire repo locally into a container where it's running it. Claude Code on the web is running it. And when I tell it that I want to go through and make some changes, it spins off, goes crazy, and makes all those changes. Did a huge refactoring of something that I was trying to do on my company site that I've been wanting to do forever that I just haven't done yet. Let it riff, let it run. Made all the changes, put them into a separate commit into the repo, and I can open up a PR and I can look at the changes it made. I can make a few little tweaks, tell it to take a look at this. Cool. Now go through and apply this in other places, and it does it. They're running a cool deal here. I think it might be probably not available by the time we do this, but like they're giving people $1,000 in credits that are available until November the 18th. And then after that, you'll have to pay for it or use your existing Claude Code subscription. It looks like you could use like your personal or your Pro Max subscriptions, which will be cool. So it's really cool. I really like it. Really, really like it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
How about you, Julie?
I'm going to share in my nutrition space something that I've actually been using for almost 2 years now, year and a half. It's a protein powder called Happy Viking. It was developed by tennis star Venus Williams. It is her company. It's also a B Corp, which is very cool. Essentially, this is a plant-based protein powder that has 20 grams of protein and 10 grams of fiber, which is the really important piece of this, as well as just probiotics, just tons of like vegetable-based nutrition as part of it. And the primary point here is it tastes really good. Like I mix up one of these shakes. My little go-to is I take a mason jar, I put 3 cubes of ice in it, pour in the 2 scoops of the powder, fill it with water, shake it, drink it. I could do that on the go. They sell it in canisters, but they also sell it in like individual packets. And so when I'm traveling for work, I pack those as part of sort of my female menopause journey. I'm supposed to eat within 30 minutes of waking up, and I am not a person who can eat solid food that early in the morning. So we're talking, 5:30, 6 a.m. So I mix up one of these drinks, have it, do my workout. So that's, preloading me, front loading me for nutrition for my workout. And then I eat after within, 45 minutes of that. I love it. They've reformulated. Chocolate is my go-to, although iced coffee is really good as well, although it has a tiny bit of caffeine. So if you're avoiding caffeine, that, is not a thing. But what I love about it is it's just so good. Like all the other protein powders have like a weird taste to them, and it's like chalky and doesn't mix well, and doesn't mix into hot liquids. My husband mixes this into his coffee in the morning, and it works great. Like he just mixes the protein powder, 1 scoop of the protein powder right into his coffee, and then he goes about his day, and it makes chocolate flavored coffee. So he loves that. And I do the iced version for, my pre-workout. It's just so good that I can get, daily recommended is 30 grams of fiber per day. If I drink 2 of these drinks, I'm 2/3 of the way there. That's like awesome. So just really good nutrition. I love it. So it's my go-to. And I thought, you know what? Since I'm pounding 2 of these a day for like a snack in the afternoon and pre-workout in the morning, I'm going to share it. It's really good.
You should share it, and it should be an affiliate.
Yeah, I don't even know if there's any kick. I don't think there is that thing. But I do. The one thing I will say is this: the single serving packets, which I love, they've reformulated probably maybe 6 months, a year ago. And the single serving packets are not the new formulation. And so if you are somebody who has had a stroke, you need to be aware of that, because they used to use a artificial sweetener, and I can't think of the name of it. I want to say xylitol or something like that. They used to do that. Now the new formulation in the canisters is pure cane sugar, but the sugar amount is low. It's low enough that it's not a problem. Carbs are actually very low on it as well. I think 9 grams of carbs per serving. But the single serving packets at this moment, the ones that I've bought most recently, still have that old sweetener in them that is not good for stroke patients. So just be aware of that. But otherwise, it's the best. So
cool. Very cool. Very, very cool.
Right.
Awesome. Well,
I think that wraps it. What do you think?
I think that wraps it. And I also think it realizes that we have to figure out what we're going to do about Thanksgiving in the U.S. because we're supposed to record on Thanksgiving, and I know I won't be able to do that.
I am not going to be able to do that either. We're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah. So we'll have to talk about it another time. All right.
We will.
Good to see you again, Julie.
All right. Great to see you. Did you like this episode? Please like and share it with your friends. We are on YouTube, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn. All the links are in the video description. If you have a question, head to codedeploygo.live where you can send it in. Also, sign up for our mailing list on our site at codedeploygo.live to learn about future episodes, opportunities for listeners, and get the show notes from each episode sent straight to your inbox. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks.